Turn the summer into a cold December. Cruise on the high road, dodging the potholes. Tied up and I'm blindfold. She got me going psycho. I walk on a tightrope. My feet getting ice cold. My head spinning like a cyclone. She got me going psycho.
Hello Rascals and welcome back to another one with us, the Review Bros, and today we're going to be reviewing a pre-workout called Insidious by Murdered Out. Looks very menacing. Is it going to be super high stim? Is it going to blow your tits off? Stay tuned and we'll find out together as we cover the taste, the price, the label and the effects and work out if it's worth that price and if it's worth picking up at all. And if you are new here, please do give the video a like if you like it, hit the subscribe button, tick the bell icon so you don't miss any of our reviews because we put out about 3 a week. So anyway, let's get into this one. Okay, tasty time, and we have got killer lollipop flavour, and these guys were kind enough to send down, I think, all of their flavours. I think me and Aaron got 3 tubs each, you know, if memory's serving correctly. So they're very nice to us. Not that that's going to let us influence our review. Anyway, so just under a flat scoop does get you that serving amount, which I believe was 18.5 grams. Yes, memory serves today. Let's check out the old mixability factor. Not bad actually. There's a few little bits settled at the bottom, but that's definitely better than what we normally see. And you know, the scoop size isn't exactly small, is it? So can't even blame it on that. It's just simply good mixability. But let's see how it tastes. Yeah, it's good. Very sour. It does actually taste like a molten down, blended up lollipop, believe it or not. So I'd say that the flavour is accurate. Definitely potent, I would say. If you want to make it weaker, obviously just add more water and vice versa. But I've gone with, what, half a pint? So yeah, I actually think that's pretty damn good. I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10. I think that if it was any more sour, aka, you know, if I had less water, I wouldn't like it as much. I'd say it's on my limit of sourness tolerance. But yeah, certainly, definitely not bad. I don't think you'd struggle. Tried the other flavours as well, they're just about as good, so good flavouring all around. Okay, so the price segment's going to be a little bit different because the website does appear to be down. We have messaged the company to find out, but it currently says maintenance. It's under construction or whatever you want to call it. So I can't actually tell you the price. But once we get the price, we'll drop it down in the description and or comments and pin it so you guys can see. Same can be said for if we get a discount code. All I can tell you is it comes in a nice 25 serving tub, which is decent. You know, it's not 30 servings, but it's also not 20, so 25 will take it. So yeah. Let's move on to the label. Okay, so let's blast through this label then. So what are we getting in this menacing looking pre-workout? And does the ingredients panel live up to that craziness on the front of the tub? Is it going to kill you? Well, let's get into it. So 18.5 grams, which is no slouch. And of that, we have L-citrulline 2:1 ratio at 6 grams, which is an okay amount. It's an amino acid and it's going to help bump up nitric oxide levels in the bloodstream, leading to increased blood flow, nutrient delivery, and ultimately the pump. Nice staple pump ingredient there, we'll take that. Then we've got L-arginine, which is actually, L-citrulline is the precursor to L-arginine, but the body actually works better at the uptake of L-citrulline in terms of bumping up nitric oxide levels. It's not as good when you give it straight L-arginine. It's a bit of a dated ingredient now, but it is in there at 3 grams and it will pair up with the L-citrulline to increase the blood flow and the pump. But in all honesty, we'd prefer to see either arginine silicate, which is a more stable form of arginine and it works better in the bloodstream, or just more L-citrulline. That's the honest truth. But you know, it should still have some effect, especially as we have actually got the L-citrulline there to work in tandem with it, which would be much better, you know, is much better scenario than having L-arginine just on its own. Anyway, that's enough waffling on that. So let's move down to beta-alanine at 2.5 grams, which is another amino acid. We normally see it at 3.2, which is the minimum effective dose. Should still elicit that itchy, tingly effect though at the 2.5 grams, fingers crossed, because we like that here. It's going to also help with endurance when it builds up in your system to buffer lactic acid. Then we move down to betaine anhydrous, 1.5 grams, an okay dose. Normally like to see 2 to 2.5 grams ideally, but that's a jack of all trades ingredient in that it helps with power, performance and pump. Then we move down to acetyl L-tyrosine at a gram, a decent dose again. So this is a different form of L-tyrosine. It's more water soluble, and therefore people believe because it's more water soluble, it must also be more bioavailable in the body. But actually, contrary to popular belief, the regular L-tyrosine does actually do better in studies in terms of how it's uptaken by the body, so go figure. But we got it in here anyway, and it will still have effect in that form, so we'll take it with focus and concentration benefits. Then we move down to taurine, which is another amino acid at a gram, a decent dose again. Another jack of all trades in that it's going to help with cognition, energy production within the body and pumps and hydration to a certain extent. Then we move down to beta vulgaris, which is beetroot extract at 500 milligrams, which is a relatively low dose. You know, I don't know that it will do all too much at that, but that's obviously going to contain nitrates, which is going to play into the pump and blood flow and ultimately vascularity and nutrient delivery and all that good stuff. So it should actually help to some degree, hopefully. Then we move down to caffeine anhydrous at 350 milligrams, which is roughly 3.5 cups of coffee worth of stimulation. Around average to what you see in pre-workouts these days. I would say average is 300 to 350, so it's in the upper end of the average. But yes, that main stimulant is going to kick in relatively fast and wake you up and get you moving. Then we have choline dihydrogen citrate, I can't speak, 300 milligrams, which is just a form of choline, so it's a choline donor. Again, as you guys may know, it's going to help with focus and concentration. Then we move down to L-theanine, which is another amino acid, 180 milligrams, which is, when you compare the ratio of that against the stimulants, i.e. the caffeine, it's not too bad at a 1:2 ratio-ish. So it's not going to dampen the effects of the caffeine too heavily. I know there are people that love L-theanine, there's people that hate it. We're kind of in the middle. We don't mind it to a certain degree if it's used at the correct amount versus the stimulants, which it looks okay here. But anyway, enough waffle. What that's going to do is basically put a blanket over the stimulants, you know, take off the edge a little bit to reduce any kind of jitters and unsettled feelings that caffeine and other stimulants might bring along. And it's going to channel it more into a nice calm, focused, calm and collected type mindset. So we'll see how it comes together in this formula specifically. Then we wrap off with bioperine, which is black pepper extract at 10 milligrams, which is double what we normally see. That's in here for the absorption and uptake of all of these ingredients, getting them into you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And they've done well actually on the flavouring, because I would never have guessed that I had 10 milligrams of black pepper. That's hard to mask, believe me. So I think the label's interesting. I think it is covering a bit of everything you want, you know, your pump, your power, your endurance, your focus and energy. It's just going to come down to is what they're put in here, is it sufficient? Is it covering those bases to a large enough extent? As we'll find out as we go into the real world effects. We are into that all-important effects section with Insidious pre-workout by Murdered Out. In the several times myself and Aaron have used it. And it's also worth noting that I've given this out to quite a few other people, because we had an event down at one of our gyms a couple of months ago and we were giving out samples at the door, and everyone that used it seemed to really like it there as well, which is always good to see. So it's something that most people are getting on with and enjoying, so that's always a thumbs up, right? But for the sake of this review, obviously it's going to be going on my personal experience and Aaron's. So let's start off like we always do with the beta-alanine tingles, because it kicks in first, generally speaking. It's in here at 2.5 grams, which is less than what we generally like to see. We like to see 3.2. So did we get the tingles? To a mild degree, nothing crazy. I would say 3 or 4 out of 10 on the tingle scale, which could be good or bad for you, depending on, you know, whether you like beta-alanine. For us, we really like it, so it was a little bit let down. I would have liked for it to kick in stronger. You know, I was keeping an open mind because it does have that 10 milligrams of bioperine, which obviously in most cases does help the itchy tingle effects come through when it concerns the absorption. But yeah, it come into a averagey amount, maybe a little bit below average, like I say. So you get the odd tingle, a bit of a heating sensation, but you don't really feel any crazy off your head sort of itching. So yeah, that is just what it is. What you do feel though, which I was surprised about, is quite a big sense of urgency, and I can only attribute that down to the caffeine all coming in, that 350 caffeine, which is nothing, you know, unheard of. Like I said, it's around average, but for some reason or another, it does come in quite strong in this pre. after sort of 20 minutes, you get that mild beta tingle like I mentioned, but you feel your heart rate go up, you feel the alertness come in very much, you're very much awake and ready to go. So yeah, you do feel that caffeine. It comes in, I wouldn't say harshly, but definitely quite strong and abruptly, and then obviously smooths out and lasts you for a good couple of hours through your training, and then it does wean off with no crash, which I can only assume is down to the L-theanine. So there's no nasty jitters or anything alongside that caffeine. The L-theanine's doing its job. Not that 350 would necessarily cause jitters, but again, that's person dependent. But yeah, the energy comes in quite strong, quite abruptly, levels off, smooths out, and lasts a good couple of hours. And I can only assume that's because the L-theanine does start to come in and then calm the caffeine down and stop it going too berserk, as it initially comes in quite, like I said,
Savage pumps in the gym and the bedroom. Wolf pump.
So yeah, that's the energy. So I would say energy is definitely above average with this pre-workout, especially as it is just relying on that caffeine as its main stimulant. So I would say, honestly, energy as daily drivers go, which obviously, yeah, I'm guessing you've all worked out by now, is a daily driver, which is quite funny considering how crazy it looks on the front, right? I was expecting this to blow my bonce off when I saw that and didn't look at the ingredients panel. So yeah, the energy is respectable as daily drivers go. I'd be happy to say 7 out of 10 on the energy scale for a non-illicit pre. So it's definitely you're gonna feel it, as long as you're not super caffeine resistant, shall we say. So energy levels, thumbs up. Now what comes in just behind that as a second best thing in my opinion is the focus. You do feel very much on the ball, productive. You know, there's no crazy mood elevation, but you do feel good on it, you feel healthy on it. You can focus easily on it because of the healthiness. You know, you're not focusing on survival mode or anything nasty like that with some of these other pre's, stronger pre's that you can sometimes. So yeah, focus is solid. There's nothing really much more to say on that other than you just feel on the ball and productive and level-headed and in the zone. Pumps is the next best thing, so the least good factor, I guess you could say, out of the three main elements, but still no slouch. You know, I'd still say it's above average pumps. So before I go too much further, I would say focus, I would give a 6.5, and pumps, I would give a 6. So energy 7, focus 6.5, pumps 6. So all above average. Not incredibly good, but good, okay, acceptable. Obviously, all you are getting for the pumps is the L-citrulline, the L-arginine. You know, you could argue the betaine to a degree and the taurine, and obviously that beetroot extract. But, you know, it does enough. It does enough to get you pumped to a nice level. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to get absolutely mind-blowing pumps and nasty contractions, but you get a noticeable pump versus, you know, if you were to not take it or to take a pre that's got no pump ingredients in it, should I say. So the pumps are there. I think that does cover everything, you know, guys. Like I said, there is no negatives to it. It is definitely a daily driver. I can recommend it to beginners. I can recommend it to advanced users. Stim junkies, obviously, it's not gonna do anything for you, really. Yeah, I think I can recommend this pre. There's definitely some improvements that they could do to label by, you know, increasing some dosages here and there, swapping out some ingredients, you know, a little bit of moving things around to make it better. But as an overall score, I'm very much happy to give this a 7.5 out of 10, which is good. It's good, right? 7.5 out of 10, with 5 out of 10 obviously being an absolute average pre-workout. So in real world effects, you know, label aside, it's sitting above average solidly. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think I have covered everything. All the flavours taste good, the effects are good, it's hitting everything you want across the board to a good or very good degree. It might just surprise you. It's not a bad little pre-workout. The only thing I could see upsetting people is if they pick it up looking at the front, expecting it to be absolutely mental, and then it obviously not being crazy because there's no illicit effects with it. They might be a bit like, oh, I didn't really do much. But if you read the panel, you know the ingredients and you know how to interpret them, then obviously you won't be disappointed. So just take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, let us know your thoughts down below. If you've used it, what you think of it. Would you pick it up based on that label and the effects I've described? Let us know. And as always, stay stimmed.